given that the Education Department guidelines say that proselytisation in attempts to convert are not allowed, how is it possible to interpret these comments in a way that doesn't violate Education Department guidelines?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. I think what you have to distinguish between what Dr. Paddison was saying at a conference that she was speaking at, which was a broader church conference about the mission of the church, and there's absolutely no evidence that week in and week out we're in any way breaching the guidelines. As you indicated in your introduction, this little controversy has been running for about 5 weeks now, and you would have thought that if we were breaching the guidelines that there would have been a litany of complaints that would have come forward, and in fact there haven't been any. Well,
there are sufficient complaints for Peter Garrett to say that he will now look closely at the material.
The complaint is because someone has picked up on this speech and referred it to the minister.
But you're asking
then joined the dots to say, well, this is what we're doing in terms of the implementation of the programs.
Well, but those of us, I mean, we don't get to observe what you do day to day. We can only go on statements that members of the organisation make. And, I mean, this particular quote, it strikes me as a pretty damning one from the perspective of the Education Department's guidelines. I mean, how are we to interpret?
Well, I think what she was trying to say was that we have this unique opportunity, and we recognise that it is a unique opportunity in Australia, particularly.
A unique opportunity to do what?
To, in terms of Christian religious education, to inform children about Christian faith and Christian values, and that's explicitly stated through government legislation passed by the Parliament and supported by both sides of Parliament in Victoria.
But what's explicit in the quote is that, quote, we need to go out and make disciples. That's not the same thing as imparting Christian values.
That was the theme of the conference, and I think that was probably a link into what was happening at the event she was speaking at, but it doesn't reflect what we actually do week in and week out. So we are extremely respectful of the balancing act that's involved in what we do, because it's clearly a pretty tricky, and to not go over the top and seek to then commend that in such a way that children feel like they're being pressured to do something.
Why is it tricky to do that? I would have thought that's not terribly tricky. You tell the story, you put it in its context, you leave the room.
Well, yeah, but as I've said before, there's an inbuilt mechanism for accountability with the Christian religious education side of things, because the chaplaincy, the lessons take place in the context of a classroom, and in the classroom is the regular class teacher. And that if what has been suggested again and again is happening, then that person, the teacher, the classroom teacher, would be, one would think, suggesting that there's a problem here, and then that would lead to a process of that situation being addressed.
So I can
indicate that on the ground that rarely ever happens.
So just to be clear, your defence, or what you're asking people to take from you, is that clearly you're not breaching the guidelines because there would have been teachers complaining about this, and so that these quotes that we read that seem to suggest fairly explicitly and strongly that the imperative and the aim of Access Ministries is conversion shouldn't affect our judgment on what's actually taking place in the classrooms. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I think that we have to be judged by the quality of our work, not some people's perceptions on what we do or don't do.
This isn't perceptions, though. These are statements from your CEO.
Well, I think she was trying to say that we have a unique opportunity, and that opportunity is one that we value, and it's particularly with CRE, we're dependent on raising volunteers to go and do it, and we have this chance to go in and commend the Christian faith to children, but we're not actually seeking to actually convert them. And she may have given that impression, but I don't think that's what we actually do in reality.
Thanks very much for your explanation. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you. See you, bye.
Bishop Stephen Hale, the Chair of Access Ministries.